The Boeing 777 shuddered through turbulence 37,000 feet above the Pacific, its cabin lights dimmed for the red-eye flight from Seoul to Los Angeles. In Seat 6A, Captain Valentina Viper Kozlova sipped lukewarm coffee and stared through the oval window at an ocean of stars. Her reflection stared back, sharp cheekbones, prematurely silver hair pulled into a regulation bun, and eyes that had seen too much sky and not enough peace. The commercial flight attendant uniform felt alien after 23 years in olive drab, but civilian life demanded civilian clothes. The headset crackled to life in the cockpit, static, then a voice, cold and electronic. United 847, this is Raven Base. We have an emergency situation. Patch us through to passenger manifest. We need to locate any military pilots aboard your aircraft immediately. Captain Morris Chen, the commercial pilot, glanced at his co-pilot with raised eyebrows. Raven Base, this is United 847. Can you clarify the nature of your emergency? Classified, just find us a pilot, preferably someone with combat experience. We're tracking multiple bogies approaching your flight path. You have approximately 18 minutes before intercept. Bogies, the word sent ice through Chen's veins. In the cabin, Viper's head snapped up as the intercom buzzed. She'd heard that tone before, urgent, controlled, deadly serious. Her hand instinctively moved to where her dog tags used to rest. Ladies and gentlemen, we're experiencing some minor technical difficulties. Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened. Technical difficulties. Viper almost smiled. In 23 years of military service, from the dusty airstrips of Afghanistan to the carrier decks of the South China Sea, she'd learned that technical difficulties usually meant someone was about to die. The aircraft banked slightly left, and through her window, Viper caught a glimpse of something that made her blood freeze. A distant contrail, too straight and too fast for commercial traffic. Then another. Her trained eye calculated vectors, speed, altitude. Whatever was out there was military, and it was closing fast. The passenger next to her, a businessman buried in his laptop, remained oblivious. The elderly woman across the aisle continued knitting. 347 souls aboard this aircraft, and none of them knew they were about to become unwilling participants in something that would either be forgotten by history or remembered as the day the sky caught fire. Viper unbuckled her seatbelt and stood, her body moving with the fluid precision of someone who had spent 2 decades dancing with death at Mach 2. The businessman looked up from his screen as she stepped into the aisle. His eyes tracked her movement, confident, purposeful, predatory. For just a moment, he wondered who this woman really was. Then his attention returned to quarterly projections and profit margins, unaware that the fate of everyone aboard might rest in the hands of the silver-haired flight attendant walking toward the cockpit with the measured stride of someone who had once owned the sky. In the cockpit, Captain Chen was patching through to passenger services, his voice tight with controlled panic. We need to know if there are any off-duty pilots aboard. Military background preferred. This is not a drill. The flight attendant's voice came back immediately. Sir, we have a woman in 6A. She listed her occupation as consultant, but her passport shows extensive travel to military bases worldwide. Should I send her up now? Viper was already at the cockpit door when it opened. She stepped inside, her eyes immediately scanning the instrument panel, calculating airspeed, altitude, fuel reserves. The pilots stared at her, taking in the civilian clothes, the confident bearing, the way she moved through their workspace like she belonged there. Gentlemen, she said, her voice carrying the faint trace of a Russian accent that 23 years in the U.S. Air Force hadn't quite erased. I believe you have a problem. Captain Chen's relief was palpable. Are you military? Was Captain Valentina Kozlova, call sign Viper, retired 3 months ago. What's our situation? The radio crackled. United 847, this is Raven Base. Bogies are now 15 minutes out. We're scrambling interceptors, but they won't reach you in time. We need you to execute evasive maneuvers immediately." Chen's hands trembled on the controls. I mean commercial aircraft don't." Viper was already sliding into the jump seat behind the pilots, her eyes fixed on the radar display. 3 contacts approaching fast from the northwest. Her mind calculated angles, speeds, probabilities. She'd seen this pattern before over the Strait of Hormuz in 2019. Hunter-killer formation. Professional. Lethal. "Where are those interceptors coming from?" she asked. "Kadena Air Base, Okinawa. F-22 Raptors, 2 minutes behind schedule due to weather delays." 2 minutes might as well be 2 hours. Viper's fingers drummed against her knee, a nervous habit from her fighter pilot days. In an F-16, she could outrun, outfight, outthink almost anything in the sky. In a commercial airliner loaded with fuel and passengers, she was flying a pregnant whale through shark-infested waters. "Can you get me in touch with the interceptor flight lead?" she asked. Chen nodded, his face pale. "Raven Base, United 847 requests direct communication with Raptor flight." Static, then a voice, young, confident. "United 847, this is Raptor lead, call sign Bulldog. We're pushing maximum throttle, but we're still 12 minutes out. Can you maintain course and altitude until—" "Negative," Viper interrupted, reaching for the radio. "Raptor lead, this is a passenger aboard United 847, former military. Those bogies are in attack formation. If we maintain course and altitude, we're dead." Silence on the radio. Then, "Passenger, please identify yourself and state your credentials." Viper hesitated. She'd retired quietly, without fanfare, hopping to disappear into civilian anonymity. Her record was classified, her missions unacknowledged, her very existence as Viper officially denied by 3 governments. "Call sign Viper, formerly 23rd Fighter Squadron. I've got 2,000 hours in the F-16 and another 800 in classified airframes. I know what I'm looking at, Raptor lead. We have maybe 10 minutes before those contacts achieve weapons range." Another pause, then urgently, "Viper, as in Valentina Kozlova, the ghost of Kandahar." Chen and his co-pilot exchanged glances. The name meant nothing to them, but the sudden respect in the young pilot's voice was unmistakable. "That's a story for another day, Bulldog. Right now, we need options." "Ma'am, with respect, you're in a civilian aircraft with 300 passengers. Your maneuvering capabilities are limited but not impossible. What's the terrain below us?" "Open ocean. Nearest landfall is Wake Island, approximately 200 miles southeast." Viper studied the navigation display, her mind working through possibilities. A commercial airliner was no fighter jet, but physics were physics. Energy management, threat assessment, spatial awareness. The fundamentals hadn't changed. "Captain Chen," she said, turning to the pilot, "I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" Chen looked at her, really looked. Behind the civilian facade, he saw something that made him nod without hesitation. Authority, competence, the kind of quiet confidence that came from making life-and-death decisions at 600 miles per hour. "What do you need?" "First, get on the intercom. Tell your passengers we're experiencing severe turbulence and to brace for rapid altitude changes. Don't mention the military situation. Panic kills more people than bullets." Chen reached for the intercom switch. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain. We're encountering some unexpected severe turbulence. Please return to your seats immediately and ensure your seatbelts are securely fastened. Flight attendants, please prepare for possible rapid altitude changes." In the cabin, passengers shifted nervously. The businessman in 7B closed his laptop. The elderly woman put away her knitting. Somewhere in row 15, a child began to cry. "Second," Viper continued, "I need you to contact your dispatch. Get me the exact weight and balance figures for this aircraft. Fuel load, passenger count, cargo manifest, everything. The co-pilot was already on it, his fingers flying over the computer keyboard. Full passenger load, 347 souls aboard. Fuel at 68%, approximately 40,000 pounds. Center of gravity within normal parameters. Good, now the hard part. Viper's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. Those aren't just any hostiles out there. That's a coordinated intercept pattern. Someone with serious resources and serious training wants this aircraft. Wants it for what? Chen asked, though part of him already knew the answer. Viper's eyes met his in the reflection of the instrument panel. 347 American citizens on a flight from South Korea to Los Angeles. Think about the geopolitical implications. Think about the message it would send. The radio crackled. United 847 bogies now 8 minutes out. Repeat, 8 minutes until intercept. Raptor flight is 10 minutes behind you. 2 minutes. In air combat, 2 minutes was an eternity. Viper had won dogfights in 30 seconds and lost squadmates in the blink of an eye. But she'd never fought for the lives of 300 innocents while strapped into a machine designed for comfort, not combat. Her hand moved to the empty space on her chest where her wings used to be. For 23 years, those wings had been her identity, her purpose, her connection to something greater than herself. 3 months into retirement, she'd thought that life was over. She was wrong. "Captain," she said, her voice steady as granite, "we're going to survive this. But I need you to do exactly what I tell you when I tell you without question. Can you handle that?" Chen nodded, his knuckles white on the controls. "Then let's remind these bastards why they shouldn't mess with American airspace." Outside the cockpit windows, the stars watched silently as Captain Valentina, Viper, Kozlova prepared for her most important mission, one that would either end in triumph or tragedy, 37,000 feet above the Pacific Ocean. The radio crackled again. "United 847, this is Raven Base. Interceptors have achieved radar lock. Repeat, hostiles have locked onto your aircraft. Evasive action authorized. Whatever you're going to do, do it now." Viper's hand moved to the thrust levers. After 3 months of civilian life, she was about to remember what it felt like to fly. The radar screen showed 3 dots closing fast, their electronic signatures painting the cockpit in an ominous green glow. In the cabin behind them, 347 souls continued their mundane activities, unaware that their survival now depended on a retired fighter pilot who had spent the last 3 months trying to forget who she used to be. But the sky never forgets its children, and Viper was coming home. "Raptor lead, this is Viper aboard United 847. I'm taking evasive action in 30 seconds. Do not, repeat, do not attempt close formation flying until I've cleared the threat zone. These passengers have been through enough." Viper understood. "Will maintain distance and provide cover once you're clear." She turned to Chen one last time. "Trust me, Captain, I've done this before." But even as she said it, Viper knew this was unlike anything she'd ever done. In an F-16, she'd been a predator, fast, lethal, untouchable. In this 777, she was a shepherd protecting her flock, using nothing but physics, intuition, and 23 years of accumulated sky wisdom. The first hostile contact appeared on the visual horizon, a silver glint against the star field. Then the second, the third. Game time. Viper's fingers closed around the thrust controls, and for the first time in 3 months, she smiled. "Hold on," she whispered to the aircraft, to the passengers, to herself. "Viper's back in business." The first missile launch detection alarm would sound in 47 seconds. But Viper was already 3 moves ahead, her mind calculating trajectories and possibilities with the cold precision that had once made her the most feared pilot in 3 different war zones. The Ghost of Kandahar, was about to earn her legend all over again. The first burst of defensive chaff exploded from the 777's belly like silver rain against the darkness. In the cabin, passengers felt the aircraft suddenly bank hard left, gravity pressing them deep into their seats. The businessman in 7B gripped his armrest, his laptop forgotten. The elderly woman clutched her knitting needles like prayer beads. "Ladies and gentlemen," Captain Chen's voice came over the intercom, steady despite the circumstances. "We are experiencing severe turbulence. Please remain calm and keep your seatbelts fastened." In the cockpit, Viper's hands moved with practiced efficiency across controls she hadn't touched in months. The 777 was responding, sluggishly but predictably, to her inputs. She'd studied the aircraft specifications during her transition to civilian life, never imagining she'd need to push it beyond its design parameters. "Bogey 1 is closing," she announced, watching the radar display. "Range 4 miles and closing. Raptor lead, what's your status?" "Still 6 minutes out, Viper. You're on your own." 6 minutes. In her F-16, she could cover 60 miles in 6 minutes. In the commercial airliner, she could barely manage basic evasive maneuvers without triggering passenger panic or structural failure. The first missile appeared as a bright streak against the night sky, visible through the cockpit windows. Viper's training kicked in, muscle memory overriding 3 months of civilian softness. She rolled the aircraft hard right, pulling negative G-forces that sent unsecured objects floating toward the cabin ceiling. "Jesus Christ," Chen breathed, watching his instruments redline. "He's busy tonight," Viper replied, her voice eerily calm. "Missile 1 missed, tracking. There, Bogey 2 is lining up for an attack run." The second hostile aircraft had closed to within 2 miles, its sleek profile now clearly visible against the star field. Viper recognized the silhouette immediately. A Chengdu J-20, China's stealth fighter. Professional military hardware, not terrorist improvisation. Her blood chilled. This wasn't random piracy or politically motivated terrorism. Someone with state-level resources wanted this aircraft intact, which meant they wanted the passengers alive. For now. "Chen, I need you to contact your company immediately. Get me the passenger manifest. I need to know if there's someone special aboard this flight." "Special how?" "VIP, government official, defense contractor, intelligence officer. Someone worth risking an international incident." The co-pilot was already scrolling through the passenger list on his computer. Nothing obvious. Mostly business travelers, a few families, some students returning from study abroad programs. Another missile launch. Viper rolled the aircraft into a steep diving turn, using gravity to help accelerate their descent. The 777 groaned under the stress, metal fatigue alarms chirping warnings that she ignored. In the cabin, passengers screamed as their world suddenly inverted. "Wait," the co-pilot said, his voice tight with concentration. "Row 12. Dr. Elena Vasquez listed as traveling on diplomatic passport, Defense Intelligence Agency." Viper's jaw tightened. DIA meant classified information, possibly related to ongoing operations in the Pacific Theater. Someone had leaked flight information, planned this intercept down to the minute. "Raptor lead, this is Viper. We've got a DIA officer aboard, probably carrying classified material. This isn't random piracy, it's a targeted intelligence operation." "Copy that, Viper. We're pushing maximum throttle, but we're still 4 minutes out. Can you maintain evasive action?" "Negative. I'm running out of altitude and airspeed. These missiles are getting closer with each pass." The third J-20 had moved into position for a coordinated attack, boxing the commercial airliner between multiple threat vectors. Viper recognized the tactics, professional, disciplined, executed with military precision. Whoever was flying those fighters had trained for this specific scenario. She keyed the intercom. Dr. Vasquez, if you can hear this, I need you to come to the cockpit immediately. This concerns you. In row 12, a woman in her mid-40s with graying hair and intelligent eyes unbuckled her seatbelt. Elena Vasquez had spent 15 years in intelligence work, most of it in hostile territories where survival meant thinking 3 steps ahead of your enemies. The evasive maneuvers, the coordinated attack pattern, the surgical precision of the intercept. This wasn't about the aircraft. This was about her. She made her way forward through the chaos, past panicking passengers and flight attendants trying to maintain order. The businessman in 7B grabbed her arm as she passed. "What the hell is happening?" he demanded. Elena looked down at him with the cold assessment of someone who had interrogated terrorists and negotiated with warlords. "We're being hunted," she said simply, then continued toward the cockpit. Viper saw her approach in the cockpit's security monitor. Professional bearing, calm under pressure, the kind of person who made life-and-death decisions without breaking stride. Good. They'd need that composure in the next few minutes. "Dr. Vasquez?" Viper asked as the intelligence officer entered the cramped cockpit space. "That's me, and you're obviously not a flight attendant." "Captain Valentina Kozlova, retired Air Force. Call sign Viper. Right now, you're the reason 3 Chinese stealth fighters are trying to force us down." Elena's face went pale. "They know about Jakarta." "Jakarta?" "Classified operation. Intelligence gathering on Chinese naval expansion in the South China Sea. If they capture me alive." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Viper understood immediately. State secrets, operational details, agent identities. In the wrong hands, Dr. Vasquez's knowledge could compromise American intelligence operations across the entire Pacific theater. "How long before you're supposed to debrief?" "Scheduled for 0800 tomorrow morning at Langley. The information I'm carrying is time-sensitive. Every hour of delay compromises ongoing operations." Another missile launch. This time, Viper couldn't dodge completely. The proximity explosion rocked the aircraft, shredding part of the left wing and causing multiple system failures. Emergency alarms filled the cockpit with urgent electronic warnings. "Engine 2 is showing abnormal readings," Chen reported, his training taking over despite his terror. "Hydraulic pressure dropping in systems A and B. Can we maintain flight?" "For now, but we're losing altitude and airspeed. Next hit will probably bring us down." Viper studied the tactical situation with the cold calculation that had kept her alive through 2 decades of aerial combat. 3 enemy fighters, professional pilots, coordinated attack pattern. 1 damaged commercial airliner with a full passenger load and minimal defensive capabilities. By any rational analysis, they were already dead. But Viper had spent her career specializing in impossible situations. "Dr. Vasquez," she said, "that classified information you're carrying, is it physically on you or digitally stored?" "Both, memory device and hard copies in a diplomatic pouch." "Give me the memory device." Elena hesitated. "Captain, that information is classified at the highest levels. I can't just—" "You can and you will, if you want these passengers to live." Viper's voice carried the absolute authority of someone who had commanded fighter squadrons over hostile territory. "I'm about to do something that will either save us all or kill us all. If it goes wrong, at least the intelligence won't fall into Chinese hands." Elena reached into her jacket and withdrew a small encrypted drive. "This contains everything from Jakarta: operational details, agent networks, intercepts of Chinese military communications. In the wrong hands." "It won't be." Viper pocketed the drive, then turned to Chen. "Captain, I need you to do something that's going to violate every regulation in your flight manual." "What?" "Put us into a power dive. Maximum descent rate, engines at full throttle." Chen stared at her. "That will stress the airframe beyond design limits. We could break up." Or we could live long enough for the cavalry to arrive. Viper pointed at the radar display. Raptor flight is 2 minutes out. If we can survive 2 minutes, we win. The next missile launch came from multiple vectors simultaneously, a coordinated salvo designed to eliminate any possibility of evasion. Viper pushed the aircraft into the steepest dive she dared attempt, trading altitude for speed, using gravity and engine thrust to accelerate beyond the missile's tracking capabilities. The 777 plummeted through 35,000 feet, 30,000, 25,000. In the cabin, passengers were pressed against their seats by crushing G-forces, some losing consciousness, others praying in languages Viper couldn't understand. Structural integrity at 90%, Chen reported through gritted teeth. 85, 80. At 15,000 feet, Viper pulled out of the dive, the aircraft's wings flexing dangerously under the strain. Metal groaned, rivets popped, but the 777 held together through sheer engineering excellence and divine intervention. "Bogies are repositioning," she announced. "They didn't expect us to go ballistic." "Viper, this is Raptor lead. We have visual contact with hostiles. Permission to engage." "Granted, but watch your backdrop. We're still in the engagement zone." The night sky suddenly erupted with the contrails of air-to-air missiles as the F-22 Raptors engaged the Chinese fighters. Viper watched on radar as the tactical situation shifted in seconds from hopeless to merely desperate. One J-20 disappeared from the scope immediately, victim of an AMRAAM missile fired from beyond visual range. The second tried to run, but the Raptors were faster, deadlier, flown by pilots who had trained their entire careers for exactly this scenario. The third Chinese fighter, however, had one final card to play. "Viper, break left, missile in the air targeted on your aircraft." The final J-20 had fired its remaining missile not at the American fighters, but at the commercial airliner. A final act of desperation or spite, designed to eliminate the intelligence asset even if the fighter couldn't survive to capture it. Viper rolled the damaged 777 into a turn that should have been impossible, pushing the aircraft and its passengers beyond human endurance. The missile passed within 50 feet of the cockpit, close enough that she could see its serial numbers in the moonlight. Then silence. The 3 Chinese fighters were gone, 2 destroyed, 1 fled beyond radar range. The F-22 Raptors took up protective positions around the commercial airliner, their pilots' voices professional and reassuring over the radio. "United 847, this is Raptor lead. Threat eliminated. Will escort you to emergency landing at Wake Island. Medical teams are standing by." In the cockpit, Captain Chen was shaking so hard he could barely hold the controls. His co-pilot was quietly vomiting into a bag. Dr. Vasquez sat in the jump seat, her face white but composed, already thinking about the intelligence debriefing that would follow. Viper looked out at the escort fighters, their navigation lights blinking reassuringly in the darkness. For 23 years she had flown with pilots like those, young, skilled, fearless, committed to something greater than themselves. For 3 months she had tried to forget that world, to disappear into civilian anonymity. But the sky never forgets its children. "Captain Chen," she said quietly, "you did good tonight. Your passengers are alive because you trusted someone you'd never met to save their lives." Chen looked at her with something approaching awe. "Who are you, really?" Viper smiled, her hand unconsciously moving to where her wings used to rest on her uniform. "Just someone who used to fly for a living." She keyed the radio one final time. "Raptor lead, this is Viper. Thanks for the backup. It's good to know the family's still watching out for each other." "Viper, it's an honor, ma'am. The Ghost of Kandahar is a legend in our squadron. We grew up hearing stories about your missions." Legends, stories. For 23 years she had been flesh and blood, adrenaline and skill, fear, and determination. In 3 months of civilian life, she had become a myth, a cautionary tale told to young pilots in ready rooms around the world. Tonight, she had remembered which version of herself was real. As the damaged 777 limped toward Wake Island under fighter escort, Viper allowed herself a moment of quiet satisfaction. 347 souls aboard the aircraft, all of them breathing, all of them going home to families who would never know how close they had come to becoming casualties in an undeclared war fought at 37,000 feet. Dr. Vasquez would complete her intelligence debriefing. The information from Jakarta would reach the appropriate authorities. Chinese naval expansion in the South China Sea would face informed American opposition. And somewhere in a Pentagon briefing room, a general would add another mission to the classified record of Captain Valentina Viper Kozlova, even though she was officially retired and had never officially been aboard United 847 on this particular night. The businessman in 7B would return to his quarterly projections, never knowing that his survival had depended on the calm professionalism of the woman who had served him coffee 3 hours earlier. The elderly woman would finish her knitting project, a sweater for a grandson who would grow up in a world where anonymous heroes kept the darkness at bay. But for Viper, everything had changed. For 3 months, she had tried to convince herself that her fighting days were over, that she could find peace in civilian life, that the warrior she had been was finally ready to rest. She was wrong. As Wake Island appeared on the horizon, its emergency lighting cutting through the darkness like a beacon of hope, Viper made a decision that would change the course of her life once again. The war wasn't over. It had simply moved to a new battlefield, fought by new rules, against enemies who understood that sometimes the most dangerous threats came disguised as routine commercial flights carrying unremarkable passengers across the Pacific Ocean. Tomorrow, she would submit her application for reinstatement to active duty. Tonight, she would help Captain Chen land his damaged aircraft and ensure that 347 American citizens made it home safely. The ghost of Kandahar was officially retired, but legends, like the sky itself, belonged to everyone and no one, existing in the spaces between what was possible and what was necessary. And in those spaces, Viper had found her true home. The runway lights of Wake Island grew larger in the darkness, and Captain Valentina, Viper Kozlova, prepared for landing, knowing that this touchdown would mark not an ending but a beginning. The sky was calling her home,